we start our meetings off with public comment period. So you would have up to 2 minutes to share your opinion with us. So I will start by asking if you have a comment that you would like to share with the board, please step forward to the podium and tell us your name and your address.
Gotta forgive me, it's been a minute since I've done any public speaking. I'm nervous. So I'm Chastity Siraki. I live at 1254 West 3rd Street in Winona. You all know me by our email conversations. Is that better? Okay.
Find out.
You all know me by our email conversations over the past couple of months. I'm here today to let you know that I am still against the tabled public health ordinance. I'm still against unconstitutional COVID mitigation measures that include but are not limited to mask mandates, vaccine mandates, lockdowns, business and school closures, or vaccine passports. I'm still against tyranny, and I am not alone. There are many people in this community who are also against these things, and we are not going away. This morning, I would like to read an excerpt from an article titled Fear in the Time of Coronavirus, written by Dr. Heather Hying, an author, evolutionary biologist, and co-host of the Dark Horse podcast. There are no facts and figures in this article for you to consider. It's simply some food for thought. The excerpt is as follows. What we actually need are honorable male and female ways of responding to the contorted and endlessly draining situation that we are all now living through. Men who behave selfishly by lashing out in violence or hedging their bets or cowering in the corner should have no power to decide policy now. Similarly, women who behave selfishly by publicizing emotion-based fears should have no power to decide policy now. By publicizing their fears, they are, in part, triggering many men to rush to protect them. By what? Mandating ineffective and unsafe medical treatments on children? Destroying a generation's ability to empathize and sympathize by obscuring everyone's faces into eternity? Undermining demonstrably effective treatments and underplaying behavioral modifications that render people less nasty, less brutish, and less short-lived? Women and men who are fearful because they focused on the one and only thing we have all been told to focus on for 2 years now deserve our sympathy.
Could you wrap it up?
They do. What they do not deserve is the platform by which to dictate policy for everyone.
Could you please wrap this up in just one sentence?
To them, I would say, I'm sorry you're scared. Your fear is misplaced. We are catering to the delusions of the weakest and most confused members of society. Thank you.
So we do have a 2-minute limit, and I would appreciate it if you could keep your comments to the 2 minutes. And maybe if you've lost track of time, I would like to try and catch your attention and ask you to finish up with just a single sentence. So is there anyone else who would like to come forward to the podium and share their thoughts with us? Or is there anyone who is connected on the internet? Please speak up. So for the third and final time, is there anyone here who would like to share their thoughts with us during this open comment period? Please step forward to the podium. Hearing no comments, I'm going to move on. So the next order of business is to approve the county board minutes from our previous meeting. Hopefully you've all taken a look at the minutes.
I move approval of the county board minutes from January 4th, 2022.
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Kavesi has moved to accept the minutes and Commissioner Ward has seconded. Ms. Qualley, you appear to have a comment.
Oh, sorry. Unrelated to this, and sorry to insert myself. There's some reverb coming. I'm wondering if it might be your laptop related.
I'm not connected to the meeting.
Okay, all
I
right.
am only showing the PDF.
So perhaps you can help. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's see, I see that Commissioner Olson is muted, and so is Commissioner Jacob. He is the telephone number.
See if that helps.
Well, we'll give it a try, yeah.
IT, thank you.
Okay, okay, thank you for that. All right, so is there any discussion about the previous county board minutes? Hearing none, All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. The next order of business is to acknowledge the receipt of approved committee minutes. I'm sorry.
Well, did we need to hear their?
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, yeah, I have been muted for some time. It said muted and I can't control it. I'm being muted by somehow through the county boardroom, not through my device.
Sure. So is
For the record.
*6 to mute and unmute, Commissioner Ward? Because you connect sometimes through the phone.
yeah, *6 is the mute, unmute. on
So
phone.
yeah, *6 should get you to unmute if somebody does mute you, but.
Okay, I'll try it.
Yeah.
You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, we can see the change on your screen.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So, all right, so this order of business is to acknowledge receipt of the approved committee minutes.
I'll move to approve the 4.1, the Extension Committee, July 8th, and 4.2, the Extension Committee is September 9th.
Second.
Commissioner Ward has moved to approve the receipt of the committee minutes. Commissioner Kavesi has moved to second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by to accept the receipt of the committee minutes. Respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Okay, motion passed. We're going to consider next the consent comments and the approval of the agenda. Commissioner Ward, do you have any changes?
Yes, I would like to pull 6.1 and 6.2 for some additional concerns and questions.
All right, so we're going to move those to general business and make them 7.00 and 7.01.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? Commissioner Kavesi?
No, I have an announcement and a committee report at the end of the meeting.
Okay,
Nothing for me, Madam Chair.
thank you, Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Jacob?
Nothing for me.
Okay. How about Administrator Alfie?
Nothing, ma'am.
Okay. County Attorney Sonneman?
Nothing for me either.
So I guess we would be ready to go ahead and approve the agenda as amended.
So move.
Second.
This motion was moved for approval by Commissioner Ward and seconded by Commissioner Kavesi. Are there any comments? Hearing none, would those who favor this motion signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the main parts of the agenda. Yeah, I do hear the feedback. Moving on to the main part of the agenda, Administrator Holte, could you read the consent agenda into the record?
6.1 and 6.2 have been pulled for further discussion. 6.3, approve county board appointments to 2022 boards and committees. 6.4, approve resolution of Minnesota Trail Assistance Program. 6.5, approve State of Minnesota Joint Powers Agreement with Career Force to provide Minnesota Family Investment Program and Diversionary Work Program Employment and Training Services. 6.6, approve renewal of grant and business associate agreements with Advocacy Center of Winona for sexual assault. Excuse me. Crisis aid and domestic violence crisis intervention services. 6.7, appoint Regional Railroad Authority Board of Commissioners. 6.8, approve renewal of the State of Minnesota Off-Highway Vehicle Safety Enforcement Grant for 2022 to 2023. 6.9, approve write-off of uncollectible accounts. And 6.10, confirm payment of disbursements.
Thank you. At this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent business.
I move that we approve the consent business as read.
I'll second.
Motion to approve the consent business was made by Commissioner Kavesi, seconded by Commissioner Ward. Is there any discussion? Hearing nothing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Commissioner Olson, we didn't hear you.
You're muted.
You muted.
Your lips are moving.
I did not mute it, but aye.
Aye. Is anyone opposed? Hearing nothing? Motion passed. So this brings us to our general business, which is 7.00, which is approve interim use permits for Scott Hansen, Denise Conway, and Joshua Johnson. Commissioner Ward?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, 6.1 and 6.2 kind of tie in together for me. I've watched the Planning Commission and listened to and followed the comments and the discussions. And I just have real problematic issues with the reasoning why like 6.1 has become an IUP and 6.2 is a CUP. And I go back into 6.1 and reading the comments, it's about changing a house, adding a second living facility for healthcare. And I read the comments and it says substantial amount of money is going to be spent. Good use of the property, secondary home, then it easily torn down. But it seems to me, and my logic is that we have a great need for housing in this county. And here somebody's making an additional housing. And then we're saying when they're done with the healthcare issue, we need to tear it down. So temporary, and we'll terminate, when the healthcare is no longer needed, but yet needing to occupy the main residency. Homes converted to, permanent use. So where's our logic in making this a house and in a housing shortage and consistency to make it an IUP and tear it down when the end comes? But yet when we go to 6.2, which is a solar, which it does say on page 37 of our packet, eventually cease and land will be returned. So that in my logic was exactly why we had IUPs, because they had a definitive ending time. We even say in the verbiage, lifespan extends beyond 25 years. But then it's in another paragraph, it says termination date cannot be determined. But yet we have a decommissioning plan and we have that 12 continuous months. If it's not producing, it needs to be shut down. So I have a hard time understanding the logic that is put into these two applications, where we're using CUP and IUP. And I was one that tried to get an IUP, but it was defined when particularly when we had a temporary blacktop plant come into Winona County to do a specific project, but it needed a permit. And we gave it I think back in the day, we gave it actually a conditional use permit. And in my training, a conditional use permit goes with the land. So it's there forever. So if they wanted to come back, technically, if they wanted to come back in 10 years, they could set up a plant again because it's a CUP. It goes with the land. But I can go ahead and approve these because the Planning Commission went through it. But I really think we need to look at our logic of what we're doing here and how it's, fits into our system. I think the IUP is not doing what I had intended to be used for.
Commissioner Jacob, is it all right if I let Ms. Planning and Environmental Services Director Qualley respond, and then you will speak after that? Is that okay?
I guess you're the chair, so whatever you decide.
So, thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner Ward, and commissioners. So, in order to be consistent with Minnesota statutes, on November 15th, 2018, we provided an ordinance amendment for interim use permits. Excuse me, more coffee this morning. So a permit An interim use permit is a permit for a use with an identifiable date or event. And we don't want to forget the second part of it, the event for termination. So if we have an identifiable date or event, in the case of what was 6.1, the identifiable event is not needing or providing health care for the permitted dwelling, or not needing or having an identifiable date for ceasing part-time farm help on the land where the work is performed. So in this case, we did have a medical health related identifiable event would be that care is no longer needed. Otherwise, as you know, we have in the Ag Resource District, we have one dwelling per 40 acres. And accessory structures that are turned into homes can also turn into vacation rentals and another whole hairball. So at this point, the ordinance is what it is, and it has an identifiable date or event. The reason that I think that the Planning Commission and the board, and I don't want to speak for all of you, but what we've seen so far with the solar projects, excuse me, how irritating, is that we're not certain they're going to end in 20 or 25 years. We're not going to force them to be conditional use permits, or rather interim use permits, if we don't know when they end. Because the panels could be upgraded. Maybe they could get another couple of years out of them, despite what they think they're going to end at. So because we can't identify the end date or an event, neither one per the ordinance, that's why the evaluations by staff have been as they are. So I hope that helps. Thank you. I'll stay up here in case there's questions.
Can we let Mr. Jacob, please?
Yeah. So this has been a frustration of mine for some time. I was concerned about the introduction of the interim use permit. Other commissioners wanted to bring it into our kind of tool belt, and so it was sold to me as an additional tool in the tool belt of the applicant. Maybe they're trying to have a concrete plant and they would be more likely to get their permit if the community knew that it was not going to go on forever. And specifically, it was the family night on the farm that precipitated my support for this IUP, agreeing to adopt this IUP. So to me, it was supposed to be extremely temporary. It's going to be a one-night event. Issuing a CUP is just, that didn't seem right. However, as I've seen it implemented, the rights of the applicant have thoroughly been taken away. I've had citizens come to me down in the Dresbach area who said, I'm not interested in applying for a CUP or an IUP. I only want a CUP. Staff and the county board said, nope, this has got to be an IUP. It's not to me what it was represented to be. It was supposed to be for very temporary uses. And conversely, when they come before the Planning Commission, it's the majority of them are IUPs, things with foundations under them, things that should go on into perpetuity, like this dog patch being converted. It could be used for a home. It could be used for a number of different things. If I were making that application, I would want all the information that, I could be eligible for a CUP. But so to me, it's not functioning the way it was represented. It was supposed to be for very temporary uses, and instead it's been transmitted or laid into something that becomes used almost every time we can figure out a way to make it a interim use rather than a conditional use, which to me empowers the government rather than empowering the citizenry. The citizen can have the rights to use this property for something for a short term, and then you have to come back in and beg for rights again, even though it's got a foundation under it. So to me, it's not working anything like what it was represented to me when I've initially voted to support it. It's something has changed, and to me, it's dysfunctional.
Commissioner Ward.
Thank you. So in your own words, Ms. Qualley, identical event for termination. So again, I go back and again, how we're using these things. The solar, we say, we have a specific in there, 12 months of non-production. And we used to, and I'm not sure in the, I haven't researched any of the decommissioning plans, but we had a 25-year time frame. And the whole concept on these solar applications was at least in 25 years with an IUP, they would be reviewed and possibly extended. But again, the way I was educated, a CUP, they just get to keep going. There's not a defined review process. So I guess, again, I think maybe we're hung up in semantics or process, or it defies my logic, and it will continue. So
I do have some comments, but do other commissioners wish to speak first? Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, I'm looking at the solar ordinance at the section on decommissioning. There's no mention of 25 years. That came up in different discussions and may not even no longer be true, but it was my understanding that the 25 years came because after 25 years, the equipment loses some efficiency and probably would not be business viable or whatever. And could be discontinued if the business is not making money. So there is no 25-year limit. That was a part of some discussion, and I'm not sure that that still is a true. I know the equipment does lose battery power, but whether it's 25 years or 26 or 23, So it just says decommissioning must occur within 90 days from either of the following: the end of a system's serviceable life, or the system becomes a discontinued use.
Other commissioners? Hearing none. Commissioner Ward, I was, and Commissioner Jacob, you know this, I was on the Planning Commission. We debated the interim and conditional use permits for 18 months. So it was a long process, and there were various proposals that were brought forward. But the staff really needed us to implement this because in this particular example, and I presume you will correct me, Ms. Qualley, if I'm wrong, but as I remember the conversation, it is a kind of a longstanding policy that if in a rural ag district, someone wants to bring in a mobile home because they need, a family member to come help them with medical help or maybe to do work on the farm, that we would allow, let's say, a mobile home or some kind of a trailer or a temporary structure to be there. And the conversation that took place at this particular planning commission meeting, and I don't recall if you were there or not, but there was debate over this very topic. And there were commissioners on the planning commission who felt like, because it's not as if they're building a structure from scratch or investing very much money in it, that this really was so similar and it was treated the same as that kind of long-standing policy about bringing in some kind of temporary housing. Now, the problem with doing it as a conditional use permit, going back to the whole reason that the Planning Commission ever considered this a few years ago, was really because any kind of a temporary agreement under the guise of a conditional use permit can't be held up in court. So what we had been doing was something that wouldn't stand up in court anyway. So because of changes in statute, I think I am right, then we proceeded to bring our zoning code in alignment with the statute. So in this case, hearing that sort of debate at the Planning Commission meeting, it did make sense to me. Now, I know that philosophically, Commissioner Jacob has issues with the distinction between these two kinds of permits. And that was, like, as I said, we debated this issue for 18 months and had it brought back kind of several different ways. And I think there wasn't a way that actually seemed to satisfy 100% of the Planning Commission. But aside from these philosophical discussions, to me, with this particular ordinance makes total sense. So I certainly support going ahead and moving forward with this interim use permit. And then I understand that there are concerns about solar gardens. As a matter of fact, Ms. Qualley is going to be at some point in the not too distant future coming back to us because she herself would like to have a little bit more control over the landscaping and the decommissioning and a little more security for the county as with respect to that. So, I mean, I anticipate that that will be changing or potentially be pushed back to the Planning Commission. I'm not sure what to tell you about the interim use permit. I'm not really sure that there's a thing that's going to satisfy everyone because of the goals, really, that as I understand them are, I think Commissioner Jacob just philosophically is against the interim use permit. Commissioner Ward.
Well, I think we have a little track record now, and I think it's worthy of some discussion and review and to see if everybody is still on board and if we're still following all the statutes and everything. Any policy, in my opinion, any policy should be periodically reviewed. So we tried this. If the majority agrees that it's working and we want to continue, but if we need to, tweak it or change it or something, I think that discussion needs to take place. And I would recommend that it start at the Planning Commission. Look at, since we put the IUP in place, pull up which ones are IUPs and see if it's still fitting how we want it to fit in the system. Because like I say, one of the big things on this is that, this big need for housing. And here we're telling it somebody that's making an additional housing unit. Well, when you're done with healthcare, you got to tear it down. I mean, that just totally conflicts with another committee that we are involved with. So I think more discussion needs to take place.
Chair Meyer?
Yes. Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah, I understand how this. Yeah, I understand how this conversation got started here. I think there's enough brought up here that if Commissioner Ward would like to make this a future agenda item, this conversation that we're having kind of isn't on our agenda. It's these two particular applications, which I do want to get approved and would support. I would also support a future agenda item if to discuss this. And I don't think I think your statement that I'm philosophically opposed to the IUP, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is the interpretation of how extensively it is to be used. To me, it's being used for more than one night events or a rock concert or a family night on the farm, something temporary. It's just been applied across the board more commonly than a CUP. And so philosophically, I believe that how we're applying it is beyond what I was understanding the intent of it would be when we adopted it. So, but
Thank you.
I would move to approve 6.9 and 6.10, or as they are now, 7.0 and 7.01. Are they or?
Yep, 7.0 and 7.01. Is there a second?
Yeah, that wasn't 6. No, I'm sorry. It was 6.1 and 6.2 moved to 7.0 and 7. I would move to approve those two.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Mr. Olson seconds. Is there any more discussion on the two recommendations from the Planning Commission? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving forward, accepting these two items on the agenda, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. All right. This moves us to our general business. There's one item left there, and it is to 7.1, which is to discuss and provide direction for the county administrator position. I think we kicked this off by getting a presentation from Pat Melvin, from David
Good
Drown.
morning.
Please proceed.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for letting me participate remotely this morning. I'm sure that we've had a lot of thoughts after our busy day on Thursday when we interviewed candidates. I just wanted to give you kind of a brief update. I provided a memo to you just yesterday, kind of summarizing what we've dealt with to date and where we are. And I will just quickly go through that.
Pat, can I interrupt you just 1 second? Commissioner Ward, this is
Yes.
public information, and there are copies of that memo over on the table. In case I saw you were going to your computer.
Yes.
Also, Commissioner Kavesi, I'm sorry, Commissioner Olson and Jacob, you're not here, but
Is it the same?
I read it.
you got it? Okay.
Thank you. So our final discussions on Thursday, after having completed the interviews, after having reviewed the input from both the department heads as well as the community panel, our final decision was to release the candidates with the exception of David Johnston and Samuel Lander-Casper. There were some lingering concerns with those two individuals, and so I did, with the board's direction, send emails to both of those individuals asking for further information. And I did receive responses on Monday, yesterday, from both candidates. One individual, David Johnson, has elected to withdraw his application at this time, and Samuel Lander-Casper, the other individual, has provided an outline of the steps that he would take to enable him to make the jump from his current position to a county administrator position. So my thoughts are that we start out with a discussion about that email that was received from Samuel Lander-Casper, and then we can go further from there. Do you agree?
Okay with me. Other commissioners?
It's fine.
Okay. So do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I can offer my thoughts if no one else is.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacob.
After reviewing Mr. Lander-Casper's plan that he put forward, I think if anything, I've become more in tune with Commissioner Kavesi's concerns that he's really lack of experience. I'm going to have a hard time supporting him.
Other thoughts? Commissioner Ward?
Thank you. Having gone through this process several times, and knowing what the climate is for job seekers and job openings and where we're going in the future, I understand people's angst of lack of experience. But when I saw this detailed plan of how Mr. Lander-Casper would grow into the job and everything, and when I looked at, so I looked at that, I went back and looked at the comments that both the department heads and the citizens made, and I see things like credible and practical, are in evidence, down to earth, focus on servant leadership. I saw that several times. Collaborator, servant leadership, collaborator, a good listener, here's concerns. Some of the other things were enthusiastic, public, noted he worked with public and understands policy and politics and reading factual local government decisions. Enthusiastic, enthusiasm, clear, eager to step in and lead, has a natural curiosity and drive, would indicates he could grow in this position. Strong desire to improve the community, would understand partnering, would be a great candidate. Up and coming, whose time hasn't come quite yet, but he knows Winona is a unique opportunity and can grow into the job. So there are a number of things in there that I picked up that I thought were admirable qualities that I would be looking for in a leader. And then I went and looked at John Hopkins. John Hopkins is quite an institution. It's highly ranked in all the reviews you get. Of course, I think what first comes to mind is their medical school, I think, is outstanding. You hear a lot of John Hopkins when you talk about the medical school, but overall, John Hopkins is like number 9 in the country. And the particular program that Mr. Lander-Casper went through is management in a Master's of Arts in Public Management. And just the blurb that explains it very quickly is, at a time when governments are faced with an array of unprecedented challenges, good management is essential. The John Hopkins MA in Public Management will empower you to be strategic by teaching students the fundamentals of public management, policy analysis, and evaluation, financial management, economics and fiscal policy, and public policy and administration. This innovative degree prepares emerging leaders to tackle complex public policy and management problems faced by leaders at all levels of government. And I think that phrase, prepares emerging leaders, and I see Mr. Lander-Casper as an emerging leader. And other committees and conversations, we talk about the great brain drain from the rural states. It would be an opportunity, as I see it, for Winona County to bring some very positiveness into our county. There was concerns that he would go from administrating like 6 or 8 people to 300 people. But stop and think about that. The administrator, not all employees report to the administrator. Most of the employees report to their department heads. And what do we have? A dozen department heads. So the department heads would be reporting to the administrator. And so it's not as overwhelming as sometimes we want to make believe it is. And again, I said in the interviews, we have good department heads, and I would think it would be their goal to make any administrator the leader and respect their thing. And then there's one thing in making a good leader: if you're humble, hungry, and smart. These are 3 things that come out of a book that I was provided. And I think I see all those things in Mr. Lander-Casper. And I think we'd be remiss to let him go as a candidate. I think we should move forward with him. And there's not only his plan, but then there are some other opportunities within AMC and within NACO as far as leadership and administrative training that we could encourage him to do. I think waiting. We saw what we got in this first round of candidates, and we came with a lot of different experiences. And in 6 months, our job markets will change. I think a lot of the good candidates will have already found various employment opportunities. And Mr. Lander-Casper does want to move to Minnesota. He would like to move back to family. And I think that's very important too. Having my own family situation, it's great to have your family close. And he has a desire to move back to Minnesota, and particularly Winona County, and make us we are a good county. We say it's a great place to live. So he wants to come back and live in a great place. So I think we'd be remiss in not giving him the opportunity.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson, and then Commissioner Kavesi.
I'm gonna just offer this, that they say that the average job expectancy, or you're going to stay as a county administrator, is what, 5 to 7 years. I don't know if that's nationwide, statewide, countywide. And everything that Commissioner Ward has just said is absolutely true. And you could substitute a name that we have on staff, perhaps Maureen Holte, that could fit that very definition. And we're out looking for all this talent, and we have Commissioner Jacob had said two things, trigger words that he heard during the interview process: integrity, transparency. And those are kind of trigger words that should go without saying. And as I think back, who has shown us integrity and transparency for the whole time I've been on the board, time that preceded me on the board, through 3 different administrators. And we have somebody sitting, I think, right in that room with you that could fit that bill. So that's going to stop there.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Yes, thank you. So I agree with, I'm pleased with the detailed plan that Mr. Landercasper sent us. It does show ability to plan, but to me it lacked like a real full scope of what the administrative position involves. I also went back to the citizen panel and department head panel, and Commissioner Ward's statements are true, but mixed in with those positive statements, we asked the citizens panel and the department heads for 4 areas. One was general impressions. In the citizen panel, 3 different times people said he was underqualified. In the department heads, 5 different people said he was underqualified. We asked them each to identify strengths for both of these candidates, and one person under the citizens said Mr. Landercasper is strong in human services, which is kind of a backward way of saying he is strong in one area, but not necessarily, well, you can fill in the blanks. But the question that's, there's 2 other questions that really point out this lack of experience. One, we asked, how well do you think this person would fit within the Winona County system? And 5 different people commented out of the citizens that he was, again, underqualified, and 6 different people under the department heads made those kind of remarks. The last question was just kind of a general, do you have other concerns or other comments? And 5 different comments under the citizens and 2 under the department head, again, reiterated lack of experience. So unfortunately, I'm not ready to accept his candidacy today. Those are very major concerns for me. I do agree with the comments made by Commissioner Olson, and would like to go forward on discussing some additional options in that area.
Do any of the rest of the commissioners have anything more to say on this topic? I would like to express my opinion, but I'm waiting for you to finish. Commissioner Jacob or Ward? No?
Yeah,
Please go ahead.
Okay, do I have the floor?
Yes, please go ahead.
Sure. I definitely, I certainly agree with everything that Commissioner Olson has stated about Maureen Holte. However, she was not an applicant in this, and if we were to move in that direction, I would be most comfortable reposting, let her make the application, and go through the process, because that's neither on our agenda nor, I don't think it's fair to the population as a whole to throw out all the other candidates and pick someone who didn't apply. So I just don't think that process seems correct. I think, Maureen Holte, first of all, she didn't apply. And second of all, if we're going to consider her, the process needs to play out and she needs to go through that process with the rest of the candidates. So I would support reposting at this point, and taking the 6 months. I think we're in good shape with a quality assistant administrator filling in as interim administrator. I think all operations are, it's a well-oiled machine. Things are running good. I don't have concerns about the amount of time it would take if we repost. So that's just kind of my response to Commissioner Olson's thoughts here. He's bringing something up that is not really before us or on our agenda.
Commissioner Kavesi, do you mind if as
go
this,
ahead.
the conversation is about to move on, I'd like to at least make my thoughts known about Samuel Lander-Casper. And then let's proceed with the rest of the conversation. So like Commissioner Jacob, I do acknowledge everything that you've said, Commissioner Ward, but I also understand and agree with the original comments that were made by Commissioner Jacob, and also with those from Commissioner Kavesi, that I am concerned that we are not an easy crowd to manage in Winona County or on this board. And so I think it is doubly difficult then for a person who is just starting out and hasn't had that level of experience to deal with us in particular. And I share Commissioner Kavesi's thoughts that feedback from the department heads and their ability to really help this candidate be successful requires that they would have respect and really feel like it's a good choice. And, their comments indicate that that is not so. So I don't support moving forward with this particular candidate as well. Okay, so now on to the Commissioner Kavesi.
That was kind of my comments, that we first need to close Mr. Lander-Casper's discussion and then move on to what are our interim steps, kind of following Commissioner Jacobs' comments on that. So do we need a motion to close his discussion, or are we going by consensus that?
Can we do this by consent, Pat?
I guess I would prefer if you would do a motion to, and the motion could be something to the extent that you are not accepting any of the applications for the current county administrator. You could do it and then in the future have a motion to proceed to repost in 6 months or sooner if you wish. But I would do it in a motion if you would.
Okay, I would move that we close the process for the administrator search, and that noting that we're not accepting any of the applicants and we will consider reposting.
Other commissioners thought, we need a second.
I can second that motion.
Okay, discussion? Commissioner Ward.
I will not support, I will not support the motion. And I gave you my reasons earlier. I think we're losing an opportunity that won't come along again.
Anyone else? Otherwise, I have some thoughts that I would share. All right, I'm taking my opening then, guys. I am inclined not to support this motion because frankly, I am in favor of what Commissioner Olson was talking about. Just in terms of if we repost, what will be different? And we have somebody on staff that is completely adequate to do the job. So the other thing is that I think posting immediately is not a useful thing to do, but posting in 6 months puts this in the middle of an election year. If we were able to resolve it more quickly than that, I would favor that.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Kvesi.
Yeah, the motion did include 3 parts: closing the administrative search, not accepting any of the candidates, and to consider reposting. I included that so we could discuss what our next steps might be. And they might be reposting, they might be taking another avenue, appointing an interim, any of those. There are other options.
Okay,
so.
given that clarification, then I do support this motion. Any other comments? Mr. Ward?
There was a comment made that, and I will totally agree with it, that this board is difficult to work with. But we've had, I have experience with past administrators, and no administrator has been able to accomplish a kumbaya spirit in this board, and I don't know that that will happen. And that's just a fact of how Winona County is politically and sociologically and, economically based. So I guess the whole idea that, and we saw that in other applicants, that they question, and again, this will all be in the newspapers. And if anybody does their homework, which they should, will understand how it is that this board functions or doesn't function. So again, thinking we're going to come up with something different or better or, to accomplish the goal of getting the board to work together, I think is unrealistic. But again, as was stated, this next year is an election year and lots of things can change. So that's just a comment. I don't know that we can obtain some of the goals that some of the board members would like. Okay.
So I'm going to need,
Please continue, yeah.
yeah, do I have the floor?
Yes, please continue.
Yeah, I would need some clarification on this motion. If it's to close out the search of the candidates that have applied and repost in 6 months, I'm in support of that. If it somehow is opening the door to review a candidate who has not applied and we have not reviewed, being Maureen Holty, if that's part of the motion, and we're debating between Maureen Holty and Samuel Lander Casper, my position changes significantly. So I don't know if we're just closing things out, reposting, and Maureen Holty wants to apply the next time around, I'm supportive of all that. But if we're trying to close this out and move to her, I think the process is inappropriate here.
Commissioner Kvesi would like to clarify, I think.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I chose the word consider reposting. If it complicates the motion, I would say we could vote it down and I would make a second motion, leaving off any discussion or any option of posting, reposting, etc.
Mr. Olson?
I would support the motion to release all applicants. And it is kind of weird that we are sitting here discussing somebody that's sitting in the room and we haven't given her the courtesy of a conversation. We can talk all around them, we can talk about them. And I appreciate Commissioner Jacobs' thoughts on, that perhaps Ms. Holty did not apply, therefore she shouldn't be considered. But I don't think that is a true statement. If we want to look at all the things that we value, being integrity, being transparency, we've had somebody that's demonstrated that for as long as I've been on the board. And I think I'd like to recognize that and have a conversation without just necessarily discounting her candidacy because she didn't apply in the previous round of applications. So I will support releasing the current applications. And I think we can continue to have this discussion. I think we all deserve to be transparent in our thoughts.
Okay, so,
Can I obtain the floor?
yes. Please proceed.
To me, Commissioner Olson is just going 100 miles an hour past. I mean, I have had no time, thought, or input from Maureen Holte. I've not had conversations with her. So this, to me, appears to be non-transparent to the community and even the county board. I would consider this to be some type of almost an ambush of this meeting. I do have reservations, and I don't want to put anything. I mean, I wouldn't do anything that I wouldn't put in writing, but this is just, it's completely, in my view, completely inappropriate to throw all these candidates out and just say, okay, we're going to choose this other person who'd never even applied. If that's the case, I support Samuel Landercasper before I support where we're going now. Okay. So I don't know where this is going, but I don't think Samuel Landercasper is qualified, but I think he's more qualified than the options that are being discussed. And it just seems completely inappropriate that we're having this discussion without this candidate even having been vetted or been asked, or I've never talked to this candidate. This just seems completely inappropriate to me. Not even on our agenda.
Thanks, Commissioner
Madam-
Jacob. Commissioner
Madam
Olson
Chair?
and Pat, can I allow Commissioner Olson to speak, Commissioner Kavesi, and then you?
Certainly.
Thank
Yes.
you. Okay, please proceed.
I'd just like to clarify, and Commissioner Jacob, I had no way intended to do a end around of anything. I simply stated what I was thinking at the moment, that we would release the applicants and that we would continue this discussion. I believe that's exactly what I said. And that is, that's as transparent as I can be. I haven't, none of us, I don't think, have formally even talked to Maureen Holte, but we are asking her to serve as an interim county administrator. We've all agreed on that. That is in her title. And that is where this would end after the motion to release the applicants today. And then we would decide, where do we go from here? Do we repost in 6 months? Let's have that conversation.
Commissioner Kavesi?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Olson. That was exactly my intention with the motion, to close the search, to not accept any of the current candidates, and then to have a discussion on our next steps, whether it's reposting or not. If it's troublesome, I could amend the motion to leave that second part, that last part out on consider reposting. Then we can close the search and then have our next discussion, which would be on the agenda, to discuss what we do in the interim after we close the search. So
I can support the motion as long as reposting is part of it. I think we need to, I think any applicant that we would ever accept needs to go through the process and vetting, and not just, I mean, I'm just beside myself to have this conversation that Commissioner Olson is bringing forward.
So Commissioner Jacob,
To me, yeah.
I just wanted to say that the motion is to consider posting. It isn't to actually commit to posting, reposting. Is that acceptable to you? That it's to consider it. The language says consider, it doesn't say do. I think that's the point you're sticking on, or that you're concerned about.
For me, it would be appropriate that if we're going to close this search, the search is really essentially, I was concerned about the word close to begin with, because we're only closing out these candidates. And I don't know if we're telling that none of all of them that they cannot reapply or what that means. But I think we didn't find a candidate in this pool, and we're all agreeing on that. And to me, the process should continue, and we should repost. And if Maureen Holte is part of that, I'd absolutely consider her. But it's premature to have a conversation about having her as just moving to her. So the motion seems, I'm not clear on it. I don't think we're closing anything. I think we just didn't find a candidate. I think we've hired this company. They didn't bring someone forward. I think they're obligated to continue the search through the money we've already paid them. So I don't know that we're closing anything. I think we're not accepting these candidates and we're reposting. That would be the motion that I would like to see. But I know it's not the one that's on the table.
Okay, I think that I had Pat Melvin next in the order for speaking.
Thank you. And I was just going to say that, maybe easiest to break these things down and do, I think, what some others have maybe alluded to, which is to go ahead and to vote just on the basis of releasing the candidates with the understanding that we did not find a candidate that met what we were looking for. And then we can move on to tackle the next issue, which is where do we go from here, just to make it easier.
So I think that the next step really needs to be to either withdraw the motion as made, or someone needs to amend the motion as it was made to potentially remove the last phrase. Am I right?
Correct. I believe so.
Yeah, I would I would amend the motion to delete the language of consider reposting. So the motion would say to close the administrative search and to not accept any of the current candidates. And if we want, we can say close the current administrative search and not accept any current candidates. But I would amend it by removing that last phrase. Actually, I went beyond the suggestion of our consultant in making the motion and including that phrase. So.
Okay, so we need a second for that.
Could you restate it just for clarification?
Okay, I would amend the motion by removing the language consider reposting. So the motion would say close the current administrative search and not accept any of the current candidates.
I'll second that.
Okay, so is there discussion on the amendment?
Yes, can I have the floor?
Yes, please proceed.
So I probably would have been in support of this if I hadn't heard Commissioner Olson's intention to try to move to someone that has not gone through the process. And so for me, I'm closing out the ability to possibly accept Samuel Lander-Casper, knowing that Commissioner Olson is moving towards trying to hire Maureen Holte. So I can't support the motion because I would prefer Samuel Lander-Casper over Commissioner Olson's apparent move to replace or fill the position with someone who we've not vetted and has not applied. So I guess at this point now I can't support the motion. I support closing out these and reposting. That's what I support.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kavesi and then Commissioner Olson, who is unmuted, so I think he wants to talk.
Yeah, to my mind, closing the candidates and then discussing our options during the interim are two separate pieces. So by removing the language that says consider reposting, I'm actually separating our decision into two parts. One, the first part would be the motion, which closes the search and does not accept any of the current candidates. And the second part would be to discuss our options during the interim, which could include reposting, could include further discussion of the responsibilities that our interim administrator would have. It could include anything that we can come up with. But to me, they're two separate conversations, and that's what the amendment does, is separate this discussion into two separate discussions. First, to close the candidacy and not accept any of the candidates, and second, to discuss our options.
But the discussion of the options isn't part of the motion.
No, that's why I removed the language of consider reposting.
Commissioner Olson?
Thank you. Commissioner Jacob, I am no way in trying to, I don't know what you're insinuating, but I have simply pointed out that we have somebody sitting in the room that is perfectly capable. I am more than willing to repost this. I would encourage Maureen Holte to apply. I don't think that your statement of saying that you have not vetted her, I don't know what you've been doing since you've been on the board if we haven't been vetting somebody that's been in that position. So I will support a reposting. I am no way saying that we should shortcut the situation. I thought I was clear when I said that. I don't know what, maybe I wasn't clear. Apparently I wasn't. I apologize. That is not my intent.
Commissioner Ward?
Of course, I won't support the motion because of reasons I said earlier, but I have had experiences and learned from other county boards where they have done exactly what we're discussing. They have posted and not had, applicants, and then they've gone internally. And I did have a very brief conversation with Ms. Holte in her role as interim, even now, that she should come up with a plan. Can she come up with a plan? It's an opportunity that maybe she wants to take advantage of, but it was just her and I discussing it. It wasn't a board thing. So, I mean, it's not uncommon for boards to look within. And again, maybe this search pointed out some flaws in our system. And I've always been a proponent of promoting within. In the past applications, I did support Ms. Holte. So I think it can go both ways. I think you can repost, or in a timeline, you can just, you can look internally. I think both are viable options. So I don't see it being a problem.
Commissioner Jacob, you're unmuted. Would you wish to speak?
I haven't done anything with my muting or unmuting. I don't know how that's happening.
Okay.
It all happens by chance.
Squirrels.
Okay.
Okay.
Snow snakes.
So at this point, we would be voting on the amendment to Commissioner Kavesi's original motion. And the amendment removed the section of the motion that had to do with reposting. So this amendment would change that so that the motion itself, which we are not voting on, we're voting on the amendment, is to close this search and to release the candidates of the search. Am I right? Okay, so further discussion on the amendment, please.
Yeah, I will not support this. I want it to be synonymous with reposting.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacob.
If that's 6 months before we repost, that's fine, but I think that needs to be part of the motion.
Okay, and this amendment removes it. Voting on the amendment to the motion, would all those, maybe we will do, because we have folks online, why don't we do a voice vote? I'm sorry, a roll call vote? All right, so Commissioner Ward.
Nay.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Aye.
Commissioner Jacob.
Nay.
Commissioner Olson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Meyer is aye. So 3-2, the amendment to Kavesi's motion passes. Is there more discussion on the motion as it has been amended? So the motion is to close this candidate search and to release these candidates. Commissioner Olson.
I thought we just voted on that.
That was the amendment.
The amendment.
Oh, so say this again.
So this is the motion. The amendment took off the phrase that had to do with reposting. Modifying the amendment to say that we are closing this candidate search and we are releasing these candidates. So that is the motion.
I thought that's what I did vote on. Aye.
Is there any other, you're ahead of me. So is there any other discussion?
Oh, I'm gonna support reposting if that's what it takes. So
Okay, reposting was removed from this motion.
Next discussion.
And that's the next discussion. Okay. This is just to close this search and to release these candidates. Okay, we'll do a voice vote.
Nay,
Commissioner Ward,
nay.
Commissioner Kavesi,
Aye.
Commissioner Jacob.
I didn't get a chance to, when you asked for further discussion, I didn't get a chance to, for the same reason that I voted against the amendment, I'm voting against this because it does not include reposting. And I don't think Commissioner Olson has got a full grip on where we're going, where the motion is going. So anyhow,
I don't have a
I'm
full
voting
grip.
against this. Yeah, I feel like it's, I'm voting against it because I feel like it should include reposting.
Okay, so that's a nay.
Nay.
And I apologize for cutting off your ability to comment. I'm sorry, that was not my intention. Commissioner Olson,
Aye.
Commissioner Myers, aye. So it's a 3-2. So this motion passes. So we have closed this search and we have released the candidates. Okay, so we are now still on the same agenda item of discussing and providing direction for the county administrator position.
I will make a motion that we repost the position.
Okay, Commissioner Olson, I'm sorry, Commissioner Jacob makes a motion that we repost the position.
For point of discussion, I will second that motion. I'm just asking, what kind of time frame are you looking at, Commissioner Jacob?
Okay, so Commissioner Olson seconds, and he asks a question of Commissioner Jacob. Commissioner Jacob, please proceed.
I think it's required that you wait at least 6 months, or recommended. Maybe Pat has an answer to that. I don't think it's immediate.
No, it's really entirely up to the board. We recommend 6 months because that does allow some time for some things to happen within the job market. Individuals that maybe previously were not considering or not available, this may give them time for those things to change. There is no magic number, be it 4 months, 6 months. Yes, so we do recommend, or we've found more success as time goes by in getting new candidates. Because most likely, and I think the question was asked or a comment was made earlier, most likely the candidates that did apply this last time and were not selected, they will not reapply, most likely.
Okay, Commissioner Ward?
Okay, with reposting, I think, unfortunately, maybe that we as a board weren't as specific in qualifications that we were looking for by the number of candidates we got, their varied qualifications and everything. And it seems like, again, I personally feel we had qualified candidates, but then they have elected not to, or we have elected not to move forward with them. So maybe we, in this interim, we really need to look at what things we want in that job posting. Obviously, very specific experiences or very specific education, or just some very specifics, because we're being very critical now, which is not, is good, but we're being critical after the fact. And I think we maybe need to be a little more critical up front if we really want to have a narrower qualified pool of candidates. And again, in 6 months, the whole job market maybe all together, everything I read, the good people are moving and going where they want to go, and that we may be very limited in 6 months as to what candidates we get. all depends on the economy and how things are going. Read the MACA news that we get, almost every report, somebody's moving, even within our counties, they're moving. Administrators are leaving, retiring, and so there's a lot of action going on.
Okay, so Commissioner Olson, am I right in understanding that you want to speak? I also think that Mr. Melvin wants to speak. No, you are fine. Mr. Melvin wants to speak, and I think maybe Commissioner Jacob does. So, Pat?
I was just going to say in response to Commissioner Ward's comments, maybe I'm not understanding, but in terms of getting more specific, we intentionally try and leave things kind of open-ended because leaving it open-ended in the posting in the profile encourages people to apply. It may not, and I guess what I'm thinking is that if we get more specific, we're going to narrow the number of people who even consider applying. Through the process, we narrow and refine that and bring it down to what we're looking for. But typically, when we're advertising, we leave it a little more open. But if you're talking about making changes to specific attributes that we're wanting, we can certainly include, more information in there that would target. I know that one of your preferences was to try and get somebody with county experience. We did solicit county experience. We just didn't get any applicants. It was unfortunate, but willing to work with you in any way to ask for, specific attributes different than what we previously had. I thought we had a pretty, thorough profile put together, and certainly if there were individuals out there with county experience, there's no reason why they would not have applied for the position.
Commissioner Jacob, did you wish to speak?
I don't have any comments right now.
Okay, okay, so Attorney Sonoman and then Commissioner Kavesi. And then I have a question for Commissioner Jacob, so.
I was just holding back, so I thought it was appropriate to say something. I just wanted to remind the board, because we're kind of talking in generalities, and there was I think maybe it was Commissioner Jacob said something about we have to go to, or there's a requirement of so many months before you can reapply. But the statute is very specific, 375A.06 on county administrator, where it's an appointed county administrator, which this county operates under. And this is just for your general information, but also what you are able to do. The county board may appoint and employ the administrator upon such terms and conditions as it deems advisable. So it's up to the county board what those terms and conditions are, and is authorized to appropriate funds and provide suitable office space for the office. The administrator shall be chosen solely on the basis of training, experience, and administrative qualifications, and need not be a resident of the county at the time of the employment. And this statute goes on in multiple other provisions, but I think what's also been discussed here and what I want just for the purposes of what the statute allows is there's a subdivision that says the county board may appoint as county administrator any county employee or officer deemed to be qualified by reason of training, experience, and administrative qualifications. So just points of information and statutory authority.
Thank you. Okay, so was it Commissioner Kavesi?
Yeah, I would support the motion, but my comment about it is that we still need to have a discussion as a board about the options that we have during the interim. By job description and by qualification and past experience, Ms. Holte has operated as our interim administrator, and I think we need to discuss how we're going to structure that this time. I believe in times past, there's been a salary difference, recognizing
Yes.
the additional responsibilities. So if we want to repost, that's okay, but I think we still need a discussion on how we're proceeding during this interim, since we have a qualified person who by past experience has done this before for us. So that's my comment.
Whenever I
Mr.
can have the
Jacob,
floor, I would like it again.
wait, I wanted to ask you a question. Could you restate your motion for me so I can write it down?
I simply said, I make a motion that we repost the position. I wish I would have put a time frame in there, but
Oh, that was
Um,
it. I was trying to figure out, had you said 6 months, yes or no?
no,
Yeah, okay. So you left the time frame open.
I haven't.
Please,
I haven't. That's
proceed.
not. That's. Yeah, I agree with everything that Commissioner Kavesi is saying, but I still feel like that's a separate conversation. Apparently, you all have had some kind of conversations, or some of you have had some conversations with Interim Administrator Holte. I have not. I would neither expect, demand, or require that she accepts the interim position. If she does, that's great. She definitely needs to be compensated. If she wants to apply, I feel like it has to go through the application process. And so I don't know, I don't know what her willingness is, or what her willingness, that she doesn't want to do. There are other ways we can handle it if she doesn't want to do it, but it's not part of my motion. My motion is that we repost, and then we deal with what we're going to do in the interim. And I think the first place that I would approach is Maureen Holte, and absolutely we'd have to compensate her, but that's not part of this motion. I don't think we're there yet.
Commissioner Kavesi?
That was exactly my point, that we still need to have that third conversation about what we're doing in the interim and how we're proceeding, which has nothing to do with.
Agreed.
But I wanted to make sure we get that on the table, so that it's coming up.
Okay, I do have some comments. Oh, but I want to wait till everyone's done. Commissioner Olson, he's waving his
No,
finger at me.
Okay, I did second this motion for the point of discussion, and I would feel much more comfortable if Commissioner Jacob would put the 6-month time frame on it. Now that we've kind of discussed it.
Okay,
Okay.
so we would need an amendment to Commissioner Jacob's motion.
Or I could withdraw my second, and then he could make another motion.
So you
I'll do-
withdraw,
I'm gonna withdraw my second.
okay, Commissioner Jacobs, okay, Commissioner
I
Jacobs, would you
will-
like to
I will make a-
withdraw and restate your motion?
Sure. My motion should be withdrawn due to lack of a second. So I will make a new motion that we repost in 6 months.
I will
Repost the
second
position in 6 months.
So we're now having discussion on a new motion by Commissioner Jacob to repost the position in 6 months, and that was seconded by Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Ward and then Commissioner Kavesi.
Just following up with a comment that was made earlier, 6 months would put us in the heart of a reelection year. And some of the candidates that we heard from had left jobs because of new elections. So just as a comment to keep that in mind. And I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner Kavesi, I believe.
Yeah, this may be part of the next discussion, but I would prefer that the motion said repost in 6 months if needed. But I think that's, to my point of view, that's kind of, that is part of the motion, that if we resolve this issue within 6 months, we would not need to repost.
Commissioner Olson, no? Commissioner Jacob?
Yeah. Commissioner Kavesi is implying things that I did not state. This is to repost in 6 months. In my view, the only way to resolve it is for the process. And I don't know if she's insinuating that we would potentially hire Interim Administrator Holte before then, but in order to give Interim Administrator Holte full confidence in the board, I feel she needs to go through the process just like any other applicant, beat everyone else out, and then she has full board support. But, so I'm not going to imply that that we're hiring internally. We repost in 6 months. That's my motion.
Okay. Are there other comments? Otherwise, I would like to speak. Okay, I don't support this motion. My preference would be, I do not want to force anything through, in particular, the discomfort that Commissioner Jacob has expressed. So I think there needs to be a process. And I think that Commissioner Ward was sort of talking about something like that, where we potentially just put external posting on hold and determine an internal process to consider internal candidates that potentially could include Administrator Holte. But we would have an opportunity to ask her if she is interested and come back and, talk to us about that. And there could be a process that included, interviews that are similar and, potentially some other things with department heads or whatever, but a process to do that, but that process might be internal. So I don't support this motion because that's what I'd rather see instead. Commissioner Kovesi.
Madam Chair, sorry to speak after you,
No.
but when Commissioner Jacob just clarified his motion, I would have to say I'm against reposting. There's money involved. It's going to cost us. It's poor timing, and I want to continue to work during the interim to see how that works out. So I would be against the motion to automatically repost in 6 months.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Ward?
I have to say this because here's our typical difference, and then it's not bad, the differences in the board's philosophy, thoughts, and processes. But I do distinctly remember Commissioner Olson at our last meeting hoping that this could be a 5-0 vote. And we can see we're not going down the 5-0 vote path. So just stuck in my mind because it was an odd thing that came up. Just reminding you. And I appreciate Commissioner Olson coming up with that. It was unexpected, but appreciate it.
Is there other discussion about this motion?
Yeah, I have to just I guess a public statement that I feel like this is completely non-transparent. There's something going on that I'm not aware of here with commissioners having apparently some conversations with Administrator Holte or Interim Administrator Holte at this point. She should have been part of this last vetting process if she wanted to apply. This just does not seem like a transparent, upfront, make the application, beat everyone that you run against. It seems like some type of, let's get rid of all these other candidates. And then once we dispose of them, we'll put our new proposal on the board. And it just feels multiple levels of wrong. I'm sorry. It's not the way this should play out.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacob. Commissioner Kovesi, did you want to speak?
I just wanted to say that I totally disregard the accusation that we are being non-transparent and that some commissioners had discussion with Ms. Holte. Apparently, Commissioner Ward had discussion with Ms. Holte. So where do you go with this? No, I don't like being accused. That's the end of the story. I think you're reading far too much into the conversation that we're having.
Commissioner Olson?
I would just add, Commissioner Jacob, I stand accused of what you said, and I'm seconding your motion. So let's call the question.
Yes.
Okay, that is not a debatable motion, but it does require 4 votes, and it would end, so it effectively ends discussion. So I will call for a voice vote. Commissioner Ward, this is to call this question.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Commissioner
Aye.
Kovesi says aye. Commissioner Jacob?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
And I vote I as well. So we are calling the question. So we are now going to be voting on Commissioner Jacobs' motion. That motion was to repost the position and it would be in 6 months. So Commissioner Ward,
Being that my last votes have failed, so I have to change course. So I'll vote aye.
Mr. Kavesi,
Nay.
Commissioner Jacob,
Aye.
Commissioner Olson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer votes. I'm sorry, I don't know what that was. Commissioner Meyer votes no, but the ayes have it. So motion passes. We're going to repost the position in 6 months.
So are we ready now to have a discussion on our expectations during the interim and some of the conditions that we would like to put on that, like salary, or do we need to have that at a different time?
Administrator Holte would like to speak.
Madam Chair, I would recommend that we continue the discussion with Mr. Melvin to determine what your process will be with him. We can have discussion at a later time.
Okay, so let me restate this. We're going to talk about the reposting at this point, and then the conversation about the interim administrator, we will have at a later time. That would be your suggestion. How does everybody feel about that?
That sounds reasonable.
And could I just note, you already had designated Ms. Holte as the interim.
Yep.
in
It's
the
in her
previous
title.
board, So
Correct.
she would continue in that until the next discussion.
Yeah, I think given that we're saying that it will be a minimum of 6 months, that's different than just a few months or a couple months or 2 weeks or, 5 weeks. And so I think then the requirements are different. And I will admit that I did have a conversation with Ms. Holte about the potential that the interim position might go on longer, and that I would want her to consider what she might need, because she has a full-time job, so that she may not be able to do multiple jobs at once. She may need to have some additional staff. There's the question of compensation. So I would appreciate, yes, that we have a future conversation about what resources it takes for that to happen. Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have one comment on the whole process. And this is something that I also discussed with Commissioner Holte. And that is that of the 6 candidates that we had on the table, in all fairness, I think one candidate did not get the full reflections of this of the county board. We had all of the information. We had our own numerical scoring, but one of the candidates was actually not discussed by all of us in terms of pros and cons or strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's a serious lack in our deliberations. So I'd like to make that comment. And that's what I discussed with Ms. Holte. So it looks like we all had a discussion on one point or another on the process so far.
Okay, if commissioners have comments, I don't want to cut them off, but then I would go back to Mr. Melvin and let him proceed with his conversation, is the next steps. But Commissioner Jacob?
Nothing at this time. I have not had any conversations.
Okay, so Mr. Melvin.
Thank you. I know these decisions are hard and where to go is difficult. I wish I could tell you that, here's the solution, here's the route we should go. But yes, reposting in 6 months, what we can do is we can certainly get a little bit of a jump on that, having a period of time here where if there are changes to the profile that the council would like to make, we can certainly look at that, different things. again, the expenses that we incur will be charged back to the county. However, professional fees, et cetera, those will not be charged because this is a continuation of an initial recruitment. So I certainly would have hoped that we would have had one candidate that would have, stood out and we could have gone forward with, but we are committed to continuing to go through the process. We'll go through the same process. There may be little things that we obviously are going to be a little further ahead with development of the profile. But if what I heard was correct from Commissioner Ward, it sounds like maybe looking at the attributes, maybe making some changes there. What I can do is I can have a revised proposal for you in just a matter of a week or two, but something that you can take a look at if you want at your next board meeting or whenever in the future you'd like to do that, but probably to get it on the schedule and to get it booked is the best thing to do at this point. Do you have any questions for me in terms of where we go from here? Again, getting that timeline out there is kind of the key to getting things established.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, I understand, if we're talking about attributes or, qualifications for the position, I would not support, strict language that says only county administration experience counts. I think there's life experience, there's, broad administrative experience, which could include budget development, multiple department overseeing, things like that. And so I think if we just said county administration experience only, we would be limiting ourselves unnecessarily. So I would, if we want to boost up the experience part, I would say something more like broad experience and define it not as county experience specifically.
Okay, thank you for that input. Does that seem reasonable to the rest of the board to have a proposal at the next meeting and to have a schedule put together at that time?
There's no rush. There's no rush.
No rush.
If we got 6 months, let's give ourselves maybe a little break and
Yeah.
then address it again in February or March. I mean, you can keep working on it. But I don't think we're gonna, I don't think you're giving us enough time to contemplate our actions and what we would change, what we would do different in the future. So I think we need a little time to discuss that in our own worlds.
Okay, with that said, should I plan on coming to a board meeting in February or March to revisit?
Yeah, end of February, early March.
That's okay with me.
Remember, it's still gonna be cold.
Commissioner
July will be hot, sticky. So
Great day in Winona County.
Yeah.
Olson, anything?
No, I don't think there has to be any drastic changes in the profile. I think that it'll, I've been involved with the system. I think transparently, the system, everything played out the way it should. I think to dismiss the applicants was the correct thing. I've always been supported the process that if you do participate in the process and you participate with transparency, that somebody will rise to the top. It didn't happen this time, but then I think the process did what it's supposed to do and told us to repost. So I'd support the process.
Mr. Jacob?
Yeah, I agree with Greg. I don't need to expound on that. As well said.
All right, thanks, everybody. Those were difficult. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and very much. Thanks.
Okay. I'm gonna wait 2 seconds. And then we're gonna move on. Okay, committee reports or communications. So I think that Commissioner Kavesi had an announcement and a committee report.
Right. I'm passing out a discussion that we had at the WinLAC meeting yesterday on our priorities. We've been sifting through these using both public comments, a stakeholder board and the planning work group and the policy committee. So that was one of our main discussion items yesterday. And you can see we have priority A, priority B, and priority C. So just for your own information, and I have copies for the press if other people want copies. That was one item in the WinLAC meeting. We also discussed our budget progress. We are on target with the budget. We discussed future, we're calling them waterside chats as opposed to fireside chats. But these are intentionally taking, organizing smaller meetings in different communities who still have obviously have a stake in this process to have discussions out in the community again. And then finally, the We Are Water exhibit is scheduled for March and April. It will be held at the Winona County Historical Center right down the street here. And that is an educational exhibit as well as a way to, again, get comments from the public on our process so far. So that's the WinLAC committee meeting yesterday. The announcement is that through the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Grant, we have a continuation on the training series that has been offered. These are free mental health webinars. One is coming up on January 25th from 9 to 10:30. The topic is Winona Reentry Assistance Program Plus, which is the program we're operating under now as a extension of our alternative programs. And it will answer questions, give basic information about what the program involves, how do you participate, what we expect for outcomes, things like that. So that's on the Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center, as well as the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council websites on information on how to register for that. And so that's January 25th. That's a Tuesday, 9 to 10:30. And the topic is the RAP Program Plus. So that's all I have. It's free.
I believe that this concludes our business. So I would be open to a motion to adjourn the meeting so that we can have the rail authority meeting.
Can we adjourn and take a 5-minute break?
Okay with me. I'm still looking for a
So
motion.
move to adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Greg's, Commissioner Kavesi moves, Commissioner Olson seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right.
So just to clarify, we're going to stay right here.
Well, we're going to take a 5-minute break and yes.
So I'm not going to turn my phone off because I'll never get back on. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Don't. After the Winona County Regional Railroad meeting.
Hello.
Are
Okay,
we back in order?
Yes.
yeah, so we are now in order. All right, so the first order of business is to elect officers. It is a 1-year term. Last year I was the chair, Commissioner Kavesi was the vice chair, and Commissioner Ward was the secretary treasurer. I guess we are.
I'll nominate those. I'll nominate all 3 of those for the same positions.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Commissioner Jacob has moved and Olson has seconded to reinstate
Good job.
the list of officers from 2022. Is there discussion?
Just
Please proceed.
With those nominations, does that put Commissioner Meyer and Commissioner Kavesi responsible for attending the, isn't there a committee?
There's a
or is
Great
that a
River Rail
separate-
Commission
Is
and
that separate? We did,
that is my committee assignment and Commissioner Kvesi's.
right,
and
so it's not.
We do
tied.
anyway. We do anyway.
Yeah, it's not tied together.
I don't think it has to be.
Not
Regional-
necessarily, but, yeah.
What do we call it? We just did those.
The Great River.
It's called the Great
Rail.
River Rail Commission. Okay, so.
Okay, yes,
Commissioner, that is actually separate. There's a item 5 on this agenda is to appoint the member and
There we
the
go, yes.
alternate to the
Great River Rail.
Commission. So that doesn't necessarily have to be the
Same.
same as the chair and vice chair of
Okay.
this group.
right.
And just for
And we
the
did that.
record, this is our county highway engineer, David Kramer.
That is executive director of the Regional Railroad Authority.
And I
Right.
thank you for that correction.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
So is there any other discussion on the election of the officers of the Rail Commission? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor, please
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
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 I,
Commissioner Olson, we didn't hear you.
Aye,
Okay.
aye, aye, yeah.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion passes. All right, we need to approve the agenda of the meeting, which was in our packet on page 93.
90.
I will move to approve the agenda as presented.
Agenda.
Second.
Okay, so Commissioner Jacob has moved and Kavesi has seconded that we accept the agenda as brought forward. As long as you will let me do an update on the Great River Rail meeting that was Tuesday. Thursday, Thursday.
That should be included in updates and communications.
Okay, then. All right, so is there any discussion other than what I said? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye.
I,
Opposed? Okay, agenda is accepted. We need to approve the minutes of the January 12th, 2021 annual meeting.
I'll move approval.
Second.
So Commissioner Ward moves to approve, Kavesi to second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye to we accept and approve the minutes from last year.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Motion passes. As Mr. Kramer indicated, next order of business is to appoint the 2022 member and alternate to the Joint Powers Board of the Great River Rail Commission with a term that begins on the 15th of January 2022. I was the member last year and Commissioner Kavesi was the alternate.
if I nominated both of you, would you be willing to serve in those capacities again?
Yes.
Yeah. Commissioner Ward?
At our last meeting, when we went over committee assignments, it seemed we are now switching roles. We have Commissioner Kavesi as the main and the alternate Commissioner Meyer by the
Yeah.
sheet that was in our,
I know that that listing was incorrect. I have been going though, and only Commissioner Kavesi's only been going when I couldn't go, so.
okay, so.
We've been abiding by that, although that isn't what was on the sheet.
Okay, so we either should we should probably correct the committee appointment sheet to reflect that.
Yes, should this appointment actually happen.
Yes, right.
So
I'm
we are
sorry.
looking for a second for the appointment.
I'll second.
Okay, so Commissioner Kavesi, who made the motion?
I did.
Jacob.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jacob.
I apologize. So, okay, Commissioner Jacob moved, Commissioner Ward seconded. If the motion is to appoint Commissioner Meyer as the primary and Commissioner Kavesi as his alternate to go to the Great River Rail Commission. Any discussion? Not hearing anything. Would all those in favor signify by saying aye?
aye,
I,
No one opposed? Okay, motion passed.
Okay, so
Yes, Commissioner Ward.
then I would ask to correct our master list of committees to reflect that change.
Commissioner Holt's given us, I'm sorry, Administrator Holt's given us the thumbs up on that.
Okay.
I'm wearing a lot of hats today.
Well, yeah, you were a commissioner at least twice. I just did it in commissioner. Okay, I think that moves us on to updates and communications. So I will just hit the highlights. This was kind of a big year for the Great River Rail Commission because in order to activate like 30 million in grants, the state legislature needed to commit to 10 million, and they did do that. So that was passed. And what that means for Winona is that there are going to be almost 20 million in siding, track, and station improvements in Winona. So some for the siding and some for a tower. Hopefully this means that we will not get stuck at Mankato as many times as we do currently. There was some concern at the Great River Rail Commission meeting on Thursday about the grant funding, and the folks from Ramsey County have done a little bit of research, and just that whatever they thought was the problem is not a problem. So this is, at this point, it's ready to proceed. So that's my update.
Question.
Yeah, Commissioner Ward.
Yeah, Commissioner Meyer, being that you're our representative. So with the upcoming construction of multiple roundabouts that interchange with the rail line, how is that all being discussed or coordinated, or is it going to be a free-for-all?
I think a lot of the work is going to get done before that, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been a bunch of equipment over on Mankato next to the tracks.
Mhm.
So a lot of that work has proceeded. But in terms of the coordination of it, I believe it would be the city of Winona, because that's who's working with MnDOT.
Yeah, they're in
But
charge of the
Mr. Kramer, do
roundabouts.
you have any advice for us?
I don't specifically, but the MnDOT's obviously administering the Mankato Avenue project. It's their project, and they're, coordinating with the city of Winona. We don't have any county roads, in there, so I don't have any, day-to-day direct involvement with the project, but I would say, they can certainly make sure those things go as smoothly as they can.
Well, and I have to commend Mr. Kramer's staff and him. When we've done major county projects, we've had a very good communication system of email or even text or
Right.
and such. So I would somehow try to relate that to both MnDOT and the city, that, there are going to be times it's going to be difficult to get in and out, and we'll have to take, alternative routes. So I think our model has worked well for us on our county projects. I would highly encourage the city and MnDOT to have some kind of, immediate communication for all our employees and businesses that are trying to come in and out of the downtown area. It's going to be greatly affected at times, I would assume.
Okay, I can mention that to them, and they can.
If they would take our
would.
suggestion, yeah.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, I just have one comment, as well as the upgrading on the siding and the track improvements, which are really important. Something important to me is that the station, our local station for Amtrak, is not accessible for the handicapped, and it's very awkward trying to board or unboard or whatever. And I appreciate that the station will also get an upgrade to be completely accessible. So that's important.
Great. Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move to
So
adjourn.
moved.
So moved.
Well, everyone
ahead.
wants to adjourn, so I'm giving it to Commissioner Ward with a second by Commissioner Jacob. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Hmm.